Before we begin this Sunday evening address, if you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to it now. And if you are already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. There's a lot of that going on. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified when a new video drops. And be sure to give the video a like. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, the white media attempted to ignore the lynching of Ahmaud Arbery. They did everything that they could to pretend as if it was a tree that fell in the forest, but none of them heard it. Hell, in the white media's case, it was a tree that fell on them, and they pretended as if they didn't get flattened by it. But the black grassroots wouldn't let it go. And now that the two inbreds, Cletus and Enos, who murdered Ahmaud Arbery, are behind bars, at least waiting until trial, now the white media is attempting to try to figure out how to push a narrative that would muddy the waters and try to create some sort of gray area. It's a matter of keep some sort of deception alive. The inbreds who murdered Ahmaud Arbery, they had tried to justify this lynching with the asinine, ridiculous claim that, well, there had been all of these recent break-ins and burglaries in the area. That was their talking point. That was their defense. And that's what the DA in that area, that's what he said too. That their whole lie, all of them on code. Here's what the story is, guys. Here's our cover story. There have been this rash of break-ins recently. Oh, for the last week or so, the last couple of weeks, it's just been a shooting gallery of theft and people just breaking into houses and stealing things and cars getting broken into. Oh, it's just been going on. Just a recent rash of break-ins. Like every day, somebody else's car is getting stolen. Someone else's house is getting broken into. That was the story. That there had been a recent rash of break-ins. Keep in mind, they carried out the lynching on February 23rd. Well, as CNN and other outlets reported, the Glynn County Police were forced to admit that there had been no burglaries or break-ins in that area for nearly 2 months leading up to the lynching. The last time that the Glynn County Police had any sort of report of some sort of break-in for anything was back on January 1st. That was almost 2 months before the lynching took place. That's not some recent rash of break-ins. And keep in mind, they only had one report of one incident. It's amazing that CNN actually posted that. But you know, it's only when you look at the details of this claim of a break-in that things really get interesting. Because you see, the person who actually made the claim was none other than the McMichaels. Yeah, the same ones who murdered Ahmaud Arbery. Here they were claiming that somebody had broken into their car on January 1st. Now, family, have you ever heard of Munchausen by proxy syndrome? It's when someone wants attention, but they know that they're too pathetic to get it on their own for anything that they've done. So in many cases, usually Munchausen by proxy is women who will deliberately abuse and make their children sick so that they can get sympathy from their friends and neighbors and such, because they are the poor, besotted parent, the poor, unfortunate parent who has to watch their child suffer, and oh, we feel so sorry for you. That's one form of Munchausen by proxy. People who want attention do that. They try to bring attention to themselves through some sort of phony baloney misfortune. Well, there's also other forms of Munchausen by proxy, usually practiced by men. You have men who set fires to places so they can get attention from the local media. During the Black Lives Matters rallies a few years back, you had a case where some white man vandalized his own beat-up, worn-out pickup truck, and he tried to claim that it happened because of some Black Lives Matters types. They were mad that he wrote Blue Lives Matters on his pickup truck, his old beat-up, dilapidated pickup truck. He got a lot of white media attention. The white media was only too eager to go ahead and signal boost this guy's fraud, his hoax. And as a result, this clown was able to get lots of his fellow inbreds to send him their state mental disability checks. Of course, as with all these other Blue Lives Matters frauds, this guy was found out to be a liar and he was arrested, but I'm sure they probably promptly let him go. But when you consider that it was the McMichaels who were the ones who claimed that somebody had broken into their conveniently unlocked truck and stolen a pistol, well, considering the source, it's time to ask if it's more than coincidence that these are the two scumbags who are constantly calling the police and constantly trying to bring attention to themselves. It's time to ask if maybe some of these break-ins and such are the McMichaels at work. It's an honest question considering these guys have been caught in a lie already. Their lie about some rash of break-ins, that's not true. The Glynn County Police said there were no rash of break-ins. Ain't been but one incident in months. Hasn't been anything in months. And the one time there was something, it was the McMichaels claiming it. So that already, if the local cops were not looking and going, oh, the McMichaels, these guys are right as rain. If the cops were not trying to figure out how to protect that area, that lets you know that it's all a pack of lies. But the white media wasn't asking those questions. CNN posted this story, but we'll get to what happened in a moment. But the fact that they were caught in a lie, that the police department, the same police department who refused to prosecute them, also is the same police department who had to admit the story about a rash of recent break-ins is a lie. First of all, was no rash of break-ins. Second of all, they weren't recent. The one break-in that there was months ago, 2 months before the lynching. If there had really and truly been some recent rash of break-ins, don't you think that these clowns would have had their pickup truck locked? If there had really been just this flood of break-ins and burglaries, man, you can't even turn your back without your pet dog or pet cat turning up missing. If things had really been like that, don't you think everybody would have had their doors and windows locked and they would have made sure that their vehicles were locked too? Yeah, there's been a recent rash of break-ins, so I'm going to leave my pickup truck completely and thoroughly unlocked, and I'm going to make sure to leave valuable things in it, because after all, who would want a pistol? Nobody would actually sell a pistol at a pawn shop or anything. God knows you can't find any pawned off pistols at a pawn shop. This story doesn't make any sense, but it's not meant to make sense. White supremacy basically gets to get away with any lie. Any flimsy lie will do. The authorities understand that you're lying. The white media knows that you're lying. You know that you're lying, but you also know that this is the unspoken rule of white supremacy. Hey, we know you didn't need a reason to go ahead and break the law or to try to harm somebody. If you're a white supremacist, all you need is an opportunity and, well, nothing will happen to you. That's what really occurred here. Their story makes no sense. So what it means is these guys have basically been trying to get attention for themselves, and they were probably they had seen most likely Ahmaud or seen some other black people who might have come through the area, and they made up their minds, we're going to mark off our territory. Jason Black talked about how these guys look like a couple of freaking rejects from a Game of Thrones episode. Yeah, what you got is you got Cletus and Enos reverting to their primordial Neanderthal state. But the fact that the police not merely contradict, but the police completely and thoroughly disprove and debunk their lie, which is the entire basis for the lynching. Their one excuse that they had was, but we had to because there were all these break-ins and burglaries that were taking place. Okay, maybe this guy didn't do it, but god dang it, we didn't know it. There were all these burglaries taking place. No, there were no rash of burglaries, just one, reported by the McMichaels, and that being the case, what it basically means is there probably wasn't even that one. So the McMichaels lie has been completely and thoroughly disproven, and by the police no less. That should have been reported and repeated wall to wall. All the white media should have carried that. That's a bombshell. That blows their entire phony baloney story up. The white media should have been on it, but they were looking and going, no, we don't want to reinforce that. At the very least, Slee's Merritt should have been making an issue out of it, but the white media didn't, and of course Slee's Merritt said nothing about it. The only ones who did, the black media. Jason Black posted a link to this very CNN story on his Twitter page a little before 1:30 p.m. on May 8th, and I and many others reposted and retweeted it. We had to make sure that people understood exactly what was happening. Hey, here's the smoking gun as if we needed one. If anybody tries to pull the old, oh, well, that black guy, there have been a bunch of burglaries and there have been a bunch of break-ins and it was probably this black guy or maybe some other black guy. But, you can't be mad at them. They were simply reacting to the fact that the neighborhood was under siege. So when they tried that lie, it's a matter of you go ahead and point out they were lying. The black media armed you with the ammunition. And the story soon began to get traction because of the fact that social media had picked it up. You had a Fox News affiliate in Columbia, Missouri, who reported on it at 3:12 p.m., a few hours after the black media, but that's how the white media is. They're slow on the uptake. And then you had the New York Daily News, who picked it up and ran a story about it at 4:06 p.m. So people were understanding that the McMichael story about some string of recent break-ins was, like everything else these white supremacists say, a complete and total lie. Their story was unraveling and happens to be falling apart. The more that we look at these clowns, the more it becomes obvious, yep, this is just like all these other killings of unarmed black people. Just some white supremacists who thought that they saw an opening, thought they saw a soft target, and decided, here we go. Social media was spreading the truth about this story. And CNN noticed this too. Because at 7 o'clock the next morning, while most other people were sleeping, CNN not only changed the headline of that story that Jason had linked to, but they also changed the entire story itself. Now, the article that CNN posted was no longer about the killers having been caught in their lie about a rash of break-ins. Now the story was totally the opposite. It was about how the local prosecutor, who had been forced to recuse himself from the case, he was now claiming that the elder inbred had investigated Arbery once. Nobody's saying anything about the two killers. Nobody's saying what investigations of them that there have been in the past. Nobody's looking and going, hey, have these guys ever had any trouble that they've caused for other citizens? They've already shown that they're a couple of trigger-happy morons. Any other people who these guys have called themselves trying to do citizens arrests on? They didn't. Instead, it's a matter of, well, we're going to try to turn this on Arbery and say, well, these guys, they had investigated him before. Really? That's what you're trying to go with? No mention of the police debunking their break-in lie. Not in the headline or the description. And when you read the rest of this new story that CNN posted in the place of the old one, you see that any mention of the break-in claims being false is also gone. CNN just cut and pasted the killer's claims and didn't even mention that these claims had already been disproven. In fact, CNN buried the one part about the break-in having been found to be a hoax. They buried that at the very bottom of the article. It's a one sentence, blink and you'll miss it phrase, and they wanted to make sure this was covered up. This is what the white media did when the truth was exposed. This is what CNN did. They buried it. When the truth was finally being reported, CNN said, we're going to cover this up. So they left the link up. The link is still live, but it no longer takes you to the story about the liars being found out. Instead, now it's a matter of, when you come looking for it, now what you're going to see is, this Arbery guy, he had been investigated by one of his killers once. They had dug up evidence that exposed the killers as liars, but because this didn't support CNN and the white media's pro-white supremacist narrative, they removed it, and they even went beyond that. They left the link up. You click on the link, and it still takes you to a story, all right. But now the story is no longer about how the killers have been found out to be liars. Now the story is, they looked at Arbery one time. Arbery had a brush with the law, and wouldn't you know it, it was either Cletus or Enos. We can't remember which one it was, but it was one of these two, Mutt and Jeff, one of these clowns who apparently called himself trying to hem Ahmaud Arbery up. They wrote an entire article that told the truth. Then CNN erased it and put up a pack of lies. This is deliberately misleading people. It would be one thing if the link was dead, but they didn't do that. Oh, they still want you to click on the link, all right. All the people who had previously posted that link and reposted it on social media, it's like, oh, yeah, you'll be bringing traffic to the site, all right. They'll be looking at this article, all right, but it's going to be something totally different. And you think these people are not the PR wing of white supremacy? They didn't move the truth to another part of the website. It's not like, we just moved this old article. No, they didn't move it. They just got rid of it altogether and put something else entirely, something completely the opposite in its place. See, the white media understands that it matters what they talk about, and it also matters how much time they devote to it. They did an entire article that went in depth and devoted a lot of space to showing what reprobate liars these killers are. These two white supremacist thugs who hunted down and murdered an innocent man, they then erased all of that and took what had previously been an entire report detailing the lies and then reduced it to a single sentence buried at the bottom of the story. Now, you would think that the family should be the main ones touting this. At the very least, Sleaze Merritt, if he's going to be the one speaking for the family, that scumbag, he should be the one talking about this, but he's not. And by the way, as soon as you see that idiot show up, you know the fix is in. And for the half-wits who are so silly as to think that maybe he's just a sorry excuse for a lawyer, while he is a pathetic excuse for a legal mind, you better ask yourself this: when has the white media ever attacked Sleaze Merritt? If this guy was really damaging white supremacy, and if he was really standing up for black people, and if he was really standing up for justice, then wouldn't they be going after him like they did Johnny Cochran? You see, it's precisely because the white media knows that when Sleaze Merritt's on the scene, white supremacy wins. That's the reason why they're not going after the guy. They're not trying to find a way to defame him or delegitimize him or to cast aspersions on him. They're not bringing anyone up to say, well, who's this Sleaze Merritt guy? Oh, his tactics are just so questionable. You see, the things he says, they're not trying to delegitimize him because he is controlled opposition. He is barely opposition at all. He gives a wink and a nod to everything that the system does. The best you get from that moron is a tisk tisk. But that's why the white media likes him. He's on the take. He's only giving a passing reference to racism or lynching because he got beat like a drum last year after he allowed his clients to help Amber Geiger get a slap on the wrist. Oh, his credibility and reputation happens to be very much in doubt, and it's not because anyone's lied about him, it's because people have found out the truth. He thinks to himself that he's going to ingratiate himself with the white supremacist powers that be. He'll get out there and, don't worry, I'll calm him down. These are my people. I know these people. I know them. You don't worry. I still get some extra butter biscuits. I'm still getting an extra invitation to the Rotary Club. Good. God knows I need the money. I'll go ahead and calm him down. I'll calm him down. He's here to do the same con game that Mushmouth Crump did, but he wants to try to get out in front of what he knows will be the inevitable accusations that he's on team white supremacy. So that's the reason why he's given a little bit of lip service to the kind of things that the black media have said. That way he's trying to give himself rhetorical cover. This is a typical white supremacist tactic. If somebody says, well, why in the world is this bastard not saying that this is a white supremacist lynching? Well, he did say lynching. Well, not him, the father did. Well, he said that the DA should be looked at, investigated by the state bar. Really? Based on what? Sleaze doesn't say what? So you see, this is just a joke. This is some quasi-media judicial theater that he's putting on for the benefit of the B1 types, the black folks who are serious about empowerment and serious about stopping these white supremacist attacks. All Sleaze Merritt is doing is trying to put some verbiage out there to give himself some cover. By the way, Jason pointed out that these inbreds who lynched Ahmaud Arbery, these clowns have long beards, look like they just got through eating a freaking Cocker Spaniel. And that this seems to be a cultural artifact among the brute class of white supremacy. Well, Sleaze Merritt, also has a long beard too. Just thought I'd point that out. But CNN's been busted. The bastards have been busted tampering with informational evidence. They have been busted trying to cover up the truth. CNN truly is the Caucasian Nazi network. I wasn't joking when I said that before. These guys are the PR wing of white supremacy. They understand that their job is to cover for the anti-black killings that take place in this country. Their job is to try to find a way to get the killers off the hook because there is a status quo that must be maintained, and they don't want any cracks in that wall. Now, since the black media has been telling the people what's really going on here, the white media is now attempting to bury whatever information proves that these racist murderers lied and had no legal or even factual basis for the lynching that they carried out. CNN has now moved their story about the Glynn County Police reporting that there had not been any rash of break-ins, and they completely changed the story to a suspect in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery was involved in a previous investigation of him, etc. You click on the link and you think that it's going to imagine that you see that the social media says, hey, here's a story from CNN showing that the break-in story was a lie. You click on it thinking you're going to get information about that. Instead, CNN baits and switches it. They bait you in and then switch the story. And now it's a story completely different about how Arbery had allegedly once been charged with shoplifting. That's their story. And then they do what they always do. They just copy and paste what the white supremacist in the DA's office or the white supremacist lynch party themselves said. CNN knows exactly what they're doing with something like this. They knew that people would pick up the story about the burglary claims being false. People would post it. And when they did, it's a matter of, okay, now we're going to see if we can trick you. The white media realizes that they lost control of the narrative on this one. They've lost the initiative and they've been scrambling ever since to get it back. The murderers have been arrested, which CNN didn't count on. Oh, what they thought they were going to do was, oh, how very sad. It's unfortunate this happened, but don't expect any arrests. And here's the reason why there shouldn't be any arrests. And as far as this goes, we're just going to pretend like it wasn't here. And hopefully this will get buried during the grand jury because we know that's what they're going to try to do. And we're going to stop talking about this so we can give the DA as much cover as possible. Under cover of silence, he'll go ahead and quietly bury this and nobody will know. And we'll just say, what can you do? It's the only system we got, and well, that'll be the story. Instead, it's a matter of no, there was enough public pressure that was put on the bastards that they had to arrest Cletus and Enos. And now the white media is going, we got a real problem here. We're trying to ratchet up the anti-black violence. We're trying to send the dog whistle that, hey, you can kill any black person you want and get away with it. And the authorities and the media are going to help do some white splaining for you. This is going to totally take the heart out of all of those would-be race soldiers who would strike a blow for white supremacy. This is going to take the heart out of them when they understand you try calling yourself harming a black person, assuming that black person isn't armed. At the very least, you can expect to be arrested and put on trial. Now you're going to give pause to them, and CNN's like, no, we can't have that. We got to stop this. We got to get this back on track. That's the goal as CNN sees it. Because they understand that people learn through repetition, and the pattern that they want to be ingrained into the public psyche is if a white supremacist kills a black person, well, different rules apply. Well, we're going to explain to you why it is that we're not going to charge them. If we charge them, we're going to explain why it's not murder. And if it is murder, we're going to explain to you why they can't be convicted. And if the people see that over and over again, they get conditioned to, well, that's just the way it is. But you've had these new voices of black media who've been putting pressure on the right people, invalidating the racist tactics that the white media uses, giving the grassroots the verbiage with which to fight back, helping people understand what needs to be done here. And the white media doesn't have an antidote to that. So now you see what it is they've been reduced to. They're going all out on this one. Their hope was that this would be like the murder of Michael Brown all over again. Or what Dan Donovan did in the case of Daniel Pantaleo. Well, we're going to bury this at the grand jury. The grand jury proceedings happen to be secret, so you won't be hearing us say, well, we really don't even believe that there's enough to convict. We don't think that there's actually enough here to warrant an indictment, but it's up to you. We just don't. But as the prosecution, we don't think there's enough. Which of course begs the question, why would you actually bring someone before a grand jury if you don't actually think that there's enough for an indictment? But that's the whole point. The point is it's supposed to be behind closed doors so nobody can see that these guys are giving a wink and a nod and, well, white supremacy wins again. But the more the people talk about this, the more they find out about Cletus and Enos, the more they find out about the lynching, the more that people see that their story is already falling apart for the few slow wits out there who actually wanted to believe it. Now the police, even the cops are having to say, even the enforcement arm of white supremacy is having to admit, no, that rash of break-in story wasn't true. They were lying. So now the more the public finds out, the less likely that you're going to be able to get a grand jury who will overlook this one. Oh, well, if it goes to trial, maybe we can lay a basis for the DA to slow walk his way to a hung jury or an acquittal. Or if all those fails, we want to at least give some cover to the judge to throw out the verdict. So that's the whole point. You've got to condition the public to accept that. If you already know that the fix is in, well, when the public is going to be outraged, well, you don't want them to be too outraged. You want the public to have resigned themselves to this predetermined conclusion. What needs to be happening right now is that there needs to be a serious examination of the past of these two. These two psychopathic white supremacist pieces of trash, every freaking aspect of their lives, everything about them, from the day that they were hatched in whatever cave they came out of until the day that they murdered Ahmaud Arbery, all of it needs to be looked at. We need to know everything there is to know about these two, because you know damn well, given the fact that these guys have shown that they are prone to unhinged violence and that they like chasing people around and that these guys clearly are a couple of violent thugs, you know dang well that they've probably got a ton of accusations against them that we're not hearing about because nobody's asking about it. Now, the Aryan propagandist, the Associated Press, they had no problem trying to figure out if they could dig up some dirt on Trayvon Martin. Always the same. It's a matter of if a black person's murdered, we got to find a way to justify it. And if a black person's accused of harming someone, we'll justify that too. The white media is not doing any looking into the background of these two inbreds, and notice that there's no black lawyers. Where are all these black lawyers we hear about? Where's the Monique Presleys of the world at, huh? Where are all these black legal scholars and legal minds that we keep hearing so much about? They're always beating their chest and telling us how skillful they are. None of them ever write any friend of the court briefs. There's no amicus briefs that ever come from these black so-called lawyers. They never seem bothered. I guess they got too much on their minds, though most of them are always complaining about the fact that they can't get enough work. Yeah, but you never do any work when you have free time. Amazing how that works. Where are the black lawyers at who are using their expertise to investigate the past of these two? You know damn well that it wouldn't take much looking at all to find out that these guys have got not a bunch of dirt under their fingernails, but they have got a freaking toilet under their fingernails. You know full well they do. No one is demanding to see Gregory McMichael's service record when he was with the police, and his son as well. Nobody's looking and saying, man, you know, as racist as he is, you know that there's going to be a ton of citizens' complaints against him. This guy's got to have all kinds of citizens' complaints that he was brought up on. How many of those complaints against him were about racial profiling? How many citizens complained about police brutality from either of these scumbags? How much corruption was Gregory McMichael's involved in? Why is nobody asking that question? Look at their service record. Look at their work record. Talk to their neighbors. It wouldn't take long at all to find that there's probably a lot of people who have problems out of these two. Now, Sleaze Merritt, he had no problem having some investigators get together to look at R. Kelly. Oh, yeah, when it came time for Sleaze Merritt to try to figure out if there was some money he could get from R. Kelly, let me get some black women in front of the camera, and they gonna say stuff about him. Oh, y'all just don't know. I'm sure that this dude's dirty. He's wrong. Black rape culture. That's what Sleaze Merritt was saying. Okay, so Sleaze Merritt can investigate a black man when he thinks white power will pat him on the head for it. But when it comes time to investigate two white supremacist scum, Sleaze Merritt forgot where his investigators are at. He forgets where he misplaced his investigator's phone number. and he's supposed to be representing the family of the deceased. Sleaze Merritt seems to think that merely giving lip service to the white media's predictable smearing of black victims of white supremacist violence is enough, and it's not. He should be telling us about all the dirt on Gregory McMichaels, all the dirt on his inbred son. He should have people looking into that. In fact, he should have already had a dossier put together and been disseminating it to anyone who would listen. What the hell is he there to talk to the family about? If he is not there to make sure that the white media doesn't get away with trying to bury this, or doesn't get away with attempting to try to let the killers off the hook, then what the hell is he doing there? Oh, I guess he told the family, well, this is out of our hands. The media, well, they're going to say what they're going to say. And what I'm here for is, there may be a check in it for you. This guy used to be with the police department, and at the very least, maybe we can make a claim. Maybe we can, but whatever you do, don't say that it was about race. We got to calm this down. We got to turn the temperature on this down. We definitely don't want this to get any hotter. We got to cool things off, and that's the responsible thing to do. And maybe there'll be a check in it for you guys when this is all over. Now, of course, I wasn't there, but given Sleaze Merritt's track record, this ambulance chasing asinine idiot, we can make some reasonable suppositions about the kind of crap that he says based on the kind of stupid stuff that comes out of his mouth. A couple of filthy, dirty, back-of-the-woods pieces of white supremacist trash like these two. You know dang well they got all kinds of accusations against them. They chase people up and down the streets with guns merely for walking through their neighborhood. There's no doubt that there's a ton of citizen and co-worker and neighborhood complaints against these two. That's what the story is. Point out to the public that, hey, this is not the first time these guys have pulled a stunt like this. These guys are not just a bunch of white supremacists. They're not just murderers. They're liars. They're brutes. They are criminals of the lowest sort. But Sleaze Merritt understands his job is to reinforce the white media's anti-black narrative. And being a good little boy that he is, Sleaze Merritt doesn't dare impugn the character of his white supremacist masters. Oh, these are two white men here. Well, I can't really say much about that. I gotta be careful now. What about R. Kelly? There's black rape culture. There's rape culture in black men. We gotta be honest about that. See, he talks tough about the black community, but when it comes to the white supremacists, well, he's all sheepish, and he says something one time and runs away, throwing a rock and hiding his hands with what he likes to do. And then this bastard gives us empty talk about how some anonymous they always assassinate the character of dead black men. Yeah, if only Sleaze Merritt was there to say something about it. Oh, wait. Family, you got to stop falling for clowns like Sleaze and Mushmouth Crump who give phony, insincere complaints, I put complaints in quotations, about how black victims of white violence are always reported on as if they were the perpetrators, because the black media has been pointing this out, except the difference is the black media has actually been going after the killers and exposing their criminal records and exposing their past and making it clear to everybody, hey, this is who Daniel Pantaleo is. This is who George Zimmerman is. This is who Amber Guyger's is. This is who she likes to pal around with. We've been digging up the dirt on the bad guys and exposing them. What's been stopping Sleaze Merritt from saying anything? Don't let these scumbags talk around the freaking truth. If Sleaze Merritt truly does understand that the white media always uses the murder of black people as an opportunity to smear the victims, if he truly understands the white media's anti-black racist tricks, then why is it that he never uses any of his TV appearances as an opportunity to educate the public about all the dirt that the McMichaels have done? There never seems to be any of these anti-black murders that occur where Sleaze Merritt says, let me tell you about Amber Guyger's. Let me tell you what we found on her social media. Oh, it may not be conclusive that she's a white supremacist, but it's certainly indicative and needs to be looked at. This is her mindset. This is what she does. This is who she associates with. And only a fool doesn't judge a person by the company they keep. That's not what Sleaze Merritt says. Instead, Sleaze Merritt, he gives just a couple of phony, insincere words of what a shame that you're smearing the victims, and then he lets the white media continue to smear the victims. You know the white media is not about to actually expose these anti-black murderers. The white media is not going to do that. And the fact that the white media remains silent about all the dirt on these anti-black killers, what it's meant to do is to create the misperception in the public mind that there must not be anything on these guys. Why? These guys must be upstanding citizens. These guys must be just average, salt-of-the-earth white people. And clearly these guys are law-abiding citizens. If they weren't, then the white media would have said something, right? Yes, CNN would have posted an article pointing out that the police say that their story about a rash of recent break-ins is a lie. That is, unless you look for it now. Sleaze Merritt time and again has allowed this to happen. The first thing that any so-called lawyer for these families is supposed to do is to make sure the public understands that these white supremacist killers are criminals. Any attorney worth his salt is supposed to stack the deck against the opponents of his client. He's supposed to stack the deck in the favor of his client. That's what he's supposed to do. An attorney's job is to take the events and make sure that they are framed in a way that is as advantageous to his client as possible. That's what the black media does. We put the bastards on the defensive and we keep them there because we understand that the white media is waging an anti-black propaganda war against us. And that being the case, you make sure that your opponent stays on their heels. You keep the bastards on the run. You don't give the bastards a single inch. We don't let the white media get away with not telling the public that George Zimmerman was a career criminal years before he murdered Trayvon Martin. We don't let the white media get away with not saying that Daniel Pantaleo had numerous civil judgments against him for police brutality and racial profiling years before he murdered Eric Garner. The white media saw Michael Slager gun down Walter Scott in cold blood, and then they lied and claimed that Michael Slager had a clean service record. Well, who told you that? His police department did, and the police wouldn't lie, you know. Except they did lie. The black media exposed Amber Geiger's social media ties to all manner of anti-black racists. We were the ones who pointed out to people that Amber Geiger had a fellow officer who she was sending lewd text messages to, and that this guy had killed a black man. So this guy, she's sitting here sexting a guy who had murdered a black man. Sleaze Merritt, however, never mentioned any of this. Apparently, the boy, not only does he not think, but he can't read either. That would explain a lot. Oh yes, Sleaze Merritt, he's such a savvy lawyer. But all he does is complain about what the white media does, even though he himself admits he knows they're going to do it. And what does he respond with? Nothing. His job is the same as all these black police chiefs. To pretend to be fighting for justice, to pretend that he understands when his true allegiance is to white supremacy. His job is to calm all of these rowdy Negroes down. We don't want things getting out of hand, so Sleaze, you're our boy. You're on the team. Absolutely, master. I sure am. And that's what his job is. These clowns calling themselves lawyers, they pretend to be fighting for justice when in reality the only thing that Sleaze Merritt and Mushmouth Crump are fighting against is us. So you can miss me with Sleaze's pathetic lip service about racism and lynching. He says it one time at 1,000,000 miles an hour in an attempt to try to fool us. I guess our heart's supposed to go pitter-pat because black people have a very bad habit of if somebody even pays us the slightest lip service, we read all sorts of things into it that aren't really there. I don't want no damn lip service. I ain't looking for lip service. I'm looking for action. And lip service is not an action. Don't sit here whining about, oh, how sad that the white media smears the black victims of anti-black violence. All I want to know is what the hell are you doing to confront the bastards over it? Sleaze's case, nothing. And the family doesn't seem too bothered by that. setting social narratives that are meant to do engineering of the society so white supremacy always gets its way. Now, since there is a racial hierarchy in place, that is the American social order, you gotta make sure that black people are held in place. But how do you do that? Well, the main means by which you do that is violence. You make sure that there is a dedicated violent apparatus, men with guns who the society allows to kill at will, but that's not enough. You also got to make sure that citizens on the street also have carte blanche to kill black people with impunity. And that's the key thing, with impunity. It's not enough that they be able to kill. It's a matter of there will be no due process. If they kill a black person, well, that's a victimless crime. We let them do that for free. But in the last 10 years, there's been the rise of the new voices of black media, and we have been taking on the white supremacists, and we have been doing it from the grassroots. As a result, the white media's bag of tricks is becoming less and less effective. Some of their tricks just aren't working at all. But that's not to say the bastards aren't trying. The white media is not telling you the facts. We can use the murder of Ahmaud Arbery as a case study in this. Fact 1, they're reporting Cletus and Enos's citizen's arrest lie as if there was something basically valid about it. They're not challenging it. They're not even examining it. They're just saying these guys say citizen's arrest and the DA said that it was fine and that's all there is. The DA's refusal to arrest these two inbreds was based on that legal claim. So why is the white media not bringing out their legal experts to discuss whether or not there's any sort of basis for citizen's arrest? Shouldn't they be chewing the fat on this? You would think that they would be discussing it morning, noon, and night, but they're not. They had no problem bringing out the Jeffrey Toobins and other TV race baiters to explain why the scared for your life defense was a 100% protection against a conviction for cops. They brought out all their lawyers to explain the law on that one, and it was just a straightforward, well, you may not like it, but there's a Supreme Court ruling, not to mention its long-standing practice, and that's just the way it is. Yeah, that was what they wanted to reinforce. That was a narrative that they wanted reinforced. So CNN, ABC, MSNBC, all the white media got on code. We're going to have to make sure that nobody challenges this. We don't want anyone thinking to themselves that this is not right. So we're just going to tell them this is the way it is, and there's no sense in changing it, so you might as well get used to it. But now, all of a sudden, the same white media that was so eager to lecture the black community about the complete and thorough inviolability of scared for your life if a cop invokes it, now all of a sudden, they can't find anyone to speak on citizen's arrest. They forgot where all of their legal experts are hiding at. Sleaze Merritt will barely even address it. He barely even mentions it, and he won't call the white media out on it. He's not challenging the white media. He pretends as if, oh, I don't like the way that the white media is talking about my client, the deceased Ahmaud Arbery. I don't like the way that they're doing that. Yeah, but he's not challenging them on it now, is he? Oh, you've seen his phony tough talk that he's tried to do, where he'll say one or two words that will fool some of the weak-minded among you. You look and go, wait a minute, didn't he say something about lynching? Didn't he say something about the DA should be sent before the bar disciplinary committee? Please, coming from Sleaze Merritt, that carries absolutely no weight. His fake tough talk doesn't fool me because the bastard wasn't talking like this in Dallas, or any of the other cases where he slithered out of his hole in search of some cameras that he could sit in front of. I pointed out that the family of Ahmaud Arbery was only giving lip service to the white supremacy and racism that took his life, and that this is exactly the kind of weak stance that we cannot afford at a time like this. They talk about how black families deserve justice. Well, that being the case, they need to be leading the charge on this, putting a face to the survivors of the victim of white violence. One of my followers on Twitter, who was clearly triggered, apparently this person took exception to my pointing this out, and they tried to argue with me, believe it or not. Some folks never learn. And this person said that, well, maybe the family's attorney was the one who told them not to make it about race. It was probably the family's attorney. Well, first of all, if you don't have any evidence, you really shouldn't be making asinine assertions like that. Secondly, if this person had done a mere 2 seconds of Googling, or if they bothered to read any of the other posts that I and about 1,000 other people have been putting up, he would have seen that Sleaze Merritt was the one misrepresenting the Arbery family. If this family truly wanted to make this solely about race, that's their call. And I advise this person that any attorney who would tell his clients to lie is betraying his client. We know the bastards had means and opportunity to murder him. We saw them do it. The white media would love to try to leave some sort of gray area for the motive. That's the main thing. Why? We can't know what's in his heart. We don't know what they were thinking. Yeah, but they never say that about black people who are accused of a crime. Nobody ever said about the Central Park Five, well, we don't know what they were thinking. We don't know what was in their hearts. They damn sure didn't say that about O.J. Simpson. They never say that about any black person. That black man who was accused of shooting up that synagogue in New York a couple of months back, nobody was saying, well, we don't know what was in his heart. We don't know what he was thinking. They never drag that line out where a black suspect is concerned. But if you're somebody who murders a black person, before they even say what your name is, there was a white man who killed a black person, and his name, well, we don't know what his name was, but it doesn't matter. What matters is we don't know what is in his heart, and you can't say that it was racism because you don't know what he was thinking. That's why it's dangerous to give the white media cover to move forward with their narrative. You got to jam the bastards up from the beginning. And any attorney who doesn't understand that, or in the case of Sleaze Merritt refuses to do that, he is on the side of the white supremacists. However, regardless of my misgivings and doubts and issues regarding certain actions of the people who are supposed to be fighting for justice in this case, I, nonetheless, as part of the black media, I'm going to continue to monitor this situation and to speak on the anti-black double standards going on. We're going to continue to call things out because unlike Mushmouth Crump or Sleaze Merritt, we're on the side of black people. And I don't have any clients in this case other than the collective good of the black collective. That's my client. And I vigorously represent my client. I make sure that the deck is stacked in the favor of my client. I understand what's happening, but as for justice, that would begin with the family making it crystal clear what the injustice was. The family making it crystal clear that we are going to be pointing out exactly what happened, and we're also going to be making sure that the bad guys are on the defensive and stay there. One of two things is going to happen. Either a clear picture of an anti-black lynching is going to take place, or the white media is going to smear and blur the picture. And actually, they're going to go beyond that. Once they've smeared and blurred it, they're going to then tell you that the blurry splotch of nothing you're looking at, why, it's a gray area here. We don't know what happened, but you know, you can't say that it was racist because, hey, take a look at this. You see the picture's so blurry. We don't know what it was. They'll do what they've always done. Tell you that you did not see what you clearly saw. You saw the video of Ahmaud Arbery being murdered. You saw these bastards stalk him. You saw them pursue him and chase him. You saw them corner him, and then you saw them gun him down. And the white media's job is to tell you that you did not see what you clearly saw. And even if you did see it, well, it's probably not illegal. Yeah, it's not illegal if a white person kills a black person, but I can tell you right now, if Ahmaud Arbery was the one who decided that he was going to go hunt some white man going through his hood, then the white media would be asking, what about his father and what's going on in the black community? And you need to bring some black preachers out here to apologize for this. And what the hell's wrong with you people? That's what the story would be. And nobody would be saying, well, you know, it's not clear if he can be indicted. We're not sure if he can actually be found guilty. Instead, the white media template is to ignore the laundry list of crimes and various offenses that these white supremacist perpetrators of anti-black violence carry out. And there's also the MO of these corrupt shysters like Sleaze Merritt. None of this actually gets addressed because white supremacy, white media is playing out a script. And each one of the clowns that they put on the camera, these are the actors that they've got acting out their script. It seems we get all these black people who love to brag about how they're lawyers or how they're cops or they're investigators or etc. In the black community, a lot of black folks like to fake the funk. They like to go ahead and boast because they know that there's no punishment for lying to the black collective. So black people love to claim that they can do all sorts of stuff that they can't actually do. They got all sorts of skills they don't actually have. They know all kinds of people they don't actually know, and that they can find out all kinds of information that they can't find out. And truth be told, they aren't even motivated to do so. But whenever black people have been attacked or killed by some piece of white supremacist trash with or without a badge, it's always the black media who has to do the legwork. Whatever happened to all these black lawyers and cops and investigators, all these black people who love to brag about how much they know? You see them in my comment section. Jason Black has them call in to his broadcast. Tariq has the same thing. You got all these Negroes who love to brag about how much they know and how they can. Oh, why? I'm practically like a black version of the CIA. Yeah, except the difference is the CIA actually gets things done. You don't. Where are all these people at now for times like this, huh? Well, so much for all of these half-baked, plugged-in Negro investigators and lawyers and such, huh? Nobody ever seems to have the ability to do the work of finding the dirt on these killers and making sure that it gets brought to light. No, we have no black people who are supposed to have all these skills who actually use them. Tells you a lot, doesn't it? Neely Fuller said that white supremacy believes in controlling both sides of the conversation. And when Sleaze Merrick comes on the scene, you see that he's their sock puppet, chosen to pretend to be against the murderers, when in reality his job is to help get them off the hook and help perpetuate the lie that, well, we keep trying, but these guys just can't be touched. Well, don't worry, Sleaze will get out there and he'll say how unfair it is and how wrong it is and how, well, it seems like. That's what that bastard said in a prior video. That's what the kind of talk you can get from these clowns who you know are on the tape. Well, it just seems like black people can be killed with impunity. It's basically, it seems like it's almost legal now. That's how you can tell, yep, can't go too far because I don't want to give any of the white supremacists or any of the casual racists any heartburn. So we're going to go ahead and say, well, it seems like that, but we don't want to say that it is like that. Because his job is to moderate it. His job is to find a way to equivocate it, downplay it, water it down and dilute it and tell you it's not as bad as all that. Only the black media is fighting for the rights of black people, starting with the right to live. Only the black media will dig up the truth on the white supremacist trash and make sure that you know about it. But you have got to do your part. You cannot sit back and think that someone else is going to fight for your freedom for you. You cannot listen to a podcast or two and think that that's all you have to do. You won't be able to hand the ball off to someone else and that they're going to be the ones who bring it home. It don't work like that. If you are not an active participant in your own freedom, then you will become a casualty of white supremacy. If you do not fight for black empowerment, then you will not have black empowerment. Simple as that. Nobody and nothing else is going to bring black empowerment to pass. You don't think to yourself that if white supremacy collapsed today, the black empowerment would be the order of the day the next day. It would not. Black empowerment is something you're going to have to work for and fight for and put in sweat every day in order to build. Defeating white supremacy is simply the first stage of it. But we got a lot of black folks who can't be bothered to go even that far. CNN has shown you exactly how far the white media is prepared to go. They understand that they are at war with black people, and they are using every dirty trick that they can. The black media is your voice, but it can only speak as loudly as you empower it to speak. The white media used the wealth of slavery to create $1 billion propaganda machine that they call their media, and then it has subsidized that media with black bootlicks who pretend to speak for us. controlled opposition just in case black folks start pointing and going, wait a minute, that stuff you guys are saying, that's a total lie. Well, don't worry. We got some Joy Reids and some Roly-Poly Martins. And hey, we also got a couple of black lawyers, a Sleaze Merritt or a Mushmouth Crump or a Mumblemouth Moore. We got some of these black lawyers, and that's good enough, right? And many black people will settle for that because as far as they're concerned, it's too much trouble for black people to have our own media. Now, you see, the white supremacists, they demand a media that says exactly what they're thinking. Black folks, on the other hand, are trying to figure out how to reform the Caucasian Nazi network. How do we redeem nothing but Caucasians? NBC. Black people are the only ones silly enough to think that. The white media and its black operatives are all beneficiaries of white power. White supremacy pays their bills and funds their operation. Black media, on the other hand, is strictly grassroots. We go in on the bad guys because that is our mission. That is our raison d'etre. That's the only reason we exist. We work for you. We're not playing some angle trying to figure out if we can get a weekend gig on MSNBC. Ain't that right, Roly-Poly Martin? We're not trying to figure out how do we get an appearance fee if we can get the white media to have us on their cable show every once in a while. If we stay on their good side and don't say anything that displeases them, why, they'll bring us on and pay us $1,000 or so, maybe a little bit more than that, for every time that we appear on their show, and that's good enough. We'll go so far, but only so far in our denunciation of white supremacy. We know what kind of language we better not say. We'll play the game. We'll play the game. Hey, and they'll let me plug my new book. Ain't that right, Michael Eric dumbass? I'm Dyson. Ain't that right? Ain't that right, Mark Lamont, you big dummy hill? You see, the black media is not trying to get some quickie settlement paycheck or trying to curry favor with some white supremacist in the media or some white supremacist in government. Like Judge Tammy the Mammy did in Dallas. That we're not trying to be like them. We are not tools of white supremacy or opportunists for ourselves. Nobody can make us say anything that we don't want to say. And more importantly than that, no one can prevent us from saying exactly what we want to say. We're not scared to point out the white supremacist killers and then expose their history of law breaking and wrongdoing. Sleaze Merritt, however, is terrified of it. As the black media, we understand that the white supremacist trash like the McMichaels and the police and the white media, that these guys are all working as a team. They will try to justify the murdering of black people by demonizing the victims and will totally ignore the murderer's past, no matter how recent or relevant it is. This is the white media's standard operating procedure, and we're here to push back. That's why it's so important to get ahead of the bastards and make sure that whenever there's a killing of a black person, you immediately put all of the white supremacist race killers' dirty laundry out there. You put those bastards on Front Street. You set them out like the racist whores they are. You make it where before the public even knows the name of the killer, they already know about his rap sheet. They know about every citizen complaint. They know about the co-workers' concerns. They know everything about the bastard. Before they even know his name, they know his dirt. That's how you put them on the defensive and keep them there. We all understand what the white media will attempt to do because it's their only play. They are a blatant, and CNN showing you, they are a shameless PR agency for any and every anti-black murder that takes place. You have got to make sure that the black media has what it needs to stack the deck against these bastards. We're up against a unified offense. We require a unified defense. This way we can have them on the ropes before they even try the usual tactics. We can define who these bastards are. It's no coincidence that in every case where the name of the white supremacist killer was well publicized, the race killer also got convicted. That's no coincidence. That's why the white media does everything it can to not mention the name of racist police or white supremacist street thugs like the McMichaels. They do everything they can. Let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery, but let's not tell you who Gregory McMichael and his degenerate offspring are. We're not going to talk about them. We're just going to talk about the victim. And while we're talking about the victim, let's also bring up any dirt that we have on him. It's just going to be a straightforward monologue about how the victim, and you never hear about his killer. The white media tried to hide Jason Van Dyke's name, and instead they only wanted to talk about Laquan McDonald. But we told the people who Jason Van Dyke was, and now he's in prison. We told people who Michael Slager was, and now he's in prison. We told people who Amber Geiger was, and now she's in prison, despite Sleaze Merritt's best efforts. The white media wants to make it where the only person whose name you know in this case is Ahmaud Arbery. That way, even if they can't smear him, they'll leave the reputation of the two inbred McMichaels clan a blank slate. In other words, you won't know anything about his killers. They're just these faceless, nameless individuals who get talked about, but you never see them. You don't know their name. You don't know anything about them. They could be anyone, which means you do not have a focus for your indignation. That's deliberate. You do not have a focus to ask questions about. They want to make sure that you don't have anything there to actually analyze. And that way, the white media, having created a vacuum, they can fill that vacuum with whatever manner of lies that they want. You saw that play itself out with the bait and switch that they did regarding the disproving and debunking of their lie about a recent rash of break-ins. The white media realized, whoops, we just filled up the public gap with the truth. Oh, better reestablish that void. Okay, now that we have, whoops, we went ahead and zipped that truth right the hell out of there, threw it away. Now let's fill it with a whole bunch of lies and innuendo and a whole bunch of hearsay. And this is meant to help the prosecutors and the defense, who will be working together. The DA's office will be working hand in hand with the defense to try to paint a false picture that these two inbreds were actually otherwise well-meaning innocent hillbillies who just happened to jump in their truck armed to the teeth and gun down an innocent man. Why, this was just a tragic confluence of events. They won't point out the McMichaels' lies, that there never was any rash of burglaries in their area. They'll also never point out that the one instance where they do claim that there was a break-in, it was the McMichaels themselves who alleged it, and how strange it is that if there were all these break-ins in the area, why would you leave your truck unlocked and leave a pistol in the truck? Why would you sit there and do that if the area was under siege by all of these invisible burglars and all of these ne'er-do-wells who surely were black? They had to be black. The white media likes that. Leave this void there, and then you get to write on this blank slate whatever you want, but whatever's written won't be the truth. They'll never point out the obvious illegality of their citizen's arrest claim, because citizen's arrest doesn't mean you get some posse together and then go driving down the street and jump on the first unprotected person you come across. The white media sees it as their mission to prejudice the public against every black person, even those who are the victims of white supremacist violence. The white media sees it as their job. We got to prejudice you against this black person here. We, the black media, we're merely doing the job that the white media and the white police and the white prosecutors have refused to do, and that's tell the truth. The public doesn't know who the McMichaels are, does not know their lies, and as CNN has shown you, if the white media and the police and Sleaze Merritt have their way, the public will never know the truth. So we're telling it, but you have to do your part. Now, we can have our issues with how the families of the deceased go about things, but the fact that the white supremacists will be called out, and at the very least, we're going to correct the record and make sure that even if we're not out there cheerleading for the deceased, or rather the family of the deceased, at the very least, we are fact-checking and correcting what the white media says. The immoral and illegal pasts of these white supremacist murderers, the responsibility to make sure that the light of truth is shown on them, that's not just the job of the black media, it is the job of us all. That means you. We know the white media is going to lie. That's their job. That's why they were invented. The question is, are you going to get up and tell the truth?